Welcome back, sci-fi fans, to the Science Fictionary Podcast. I am Andrew, and I'm here with Marisha, which is weird for a change. You know, she's here, and then Iana's here. One of the Padawans. We're going to be seeing more of her and her sister, and maybe one day her brother, if he ever gets past the idea of sitting in front of a camera. He needs like somewhere off camera where he can sit and just talk.
Say weird stuff.
I mean, he would talk your ear off. He just does not want to sit in front of a camera. He's allergic. Yeah, I don't blame him. Like I've talked about on here. Like this is every time I get ready to hit play on this, I want to jump up and run away from the camera. I tell people I became a photographer so I could stand behind the camera.
It's true.
And here I am in front of one.
Yeah, like at our wedding, I spent the whole time going, smile.
That didn't happen.
I did so. I literally said, "Hey, love, you're happy. Why don't you smile at the camera?"
Just making stuff up.
Not making stuff up. I have witnesses.
Like who?
I'm sure I could drag some up.
All right. So we got a few things we're going to talk about here today, but Iana is specifically joining us because she watched Ironheart with me. First 3 episodes. We're going to talk about that one. We have talked about it a little bit. I try not when we're going to talk about it on here, I try not to go too deep into conversation before we get here. As someone once told me, don't do the show before you do the show, which is kind of hard when you live with the people you do the show with. But we're gonna talk about it here. So I know not a lot of people are watching it. Hopefully some of you are watching it and care to hear us talk about it. And maybe you care to hear us talk about it even if you're not. But let's see. So just first thoughts. Everybody's first thoughts on Ironheart. If y'all don't want to go first, I'll go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I've actually enjoyed watching it, which is a lot more than I expected.
It was, yeah, I mean, I expected it to be absolutely the most abysmal thing that the MCU had ever created. It's not. I'll still watch this over Eternals. But that being said, unless I'm forgetting one, I'm still going to, for now, put it at, well, even for now, I'm only going to put it like, I'm going to put it one space above the bottom of MCU TV series. Because despite the fact that it was more enjoyable to watch than I had any anticipation of it being, and keep in mind, that is not me saying this is like some like amazing, fantastic series. I put Secret Invasion at the very, very bottom of the MCU on Disney Plus.
It was bad.
It wasn't just kind of bad.
It was really bad.
Like they should just do away with that one forever.
Be like, never mind.
Yeah.
It went away. Poof.
What about you? Just your initial.
I mean, I'm kind of with Iana. I really, I don't know. Maybe I think maybe I'm among the ranks of people who are a little disenchanted with a lot of things happening, just Disney in general. Star Wars, Marvel. I've become, like when all this stuff started coming out, we watched it as soon as it dropped. But it's like, okay, whatever. I mean, I'll watch it. I wasn't really optimistic about it. And I have honestly not been optimistic about I was really not optimistic about Hawkeye, which I really enjoyed. So it was one that I
You weren't optimistic about Hawkeye back when. I mean, that's been out for a couple of years now.
No. I really wasn't interested, but I really enjoyed it when it came out. And I'm enjoying this one. I think it's, it's really, it's enjoyable to sit down and watch. I don't know how much scrutiny it'll hold up to long term, but it's enjoyable as a sit down and watch. And that's not nothing.
I mean, I don't think I'll go quite as far. And I think that once you begin sitting back and scrutinizing it, it starts falling apart pretty fast.
That's fair.
I think the challenge for this show is to make Riri Williams a likable character. And I feel like they might be moving her the right direction by the end of episode 3. But the truth is she's selfish, greedy, she's a thief. Right now, there's not, like, if we're gonna throw this person in as one of our Marvel heroes, she's got a long ways to go.
Well, and I think she is kind of like
But she wasn't like this isn't our, we're getting her origin, sort of an origin. It's an origin of her coming into her own as a hero. We've met her in Wakanda Forever, and she is the most throwaway part of that entire movie.
Yeah.
She's really shoehorned in there. Now, I know things happened with that movie. I don't envy anyone having to do what they did and rewrite last minute because your main character, your actor playing your main character passes
your
away.
Iconic, beloved. It's not just like, oh, and he was the lead. He was like an icon.
Like, it would be hard to find anybody that didn't like Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
And so in that case, I don't envy anyone having to make the changes they made to that movie. But Riri Williams does not work in that movie.
No,
she's unlikable. The character doesn't even need to be there to tell the story. She's just very shoehorned in there because they wanted to do this TV show,
right?
And the character is not likable in that. And the first thing we see her doing here, and now what I will say, and Ryan Coogler's not writing this, he is directly involved in this show, though. The message of the first 2 Black Panther movies, okay, so there's something about the way he tells stories where you get there's something about the way he presents the villain side of things where people latch onto it, and I don't like that. In the first Black Panther, it was Killmonger's message that everybody, lots of people said this is the theme of the movie, and it's like, he's the villain. That's not the theme of the movie.
Honestly, though, I think that's, I don't know if it's just Ryan Coogler's fault. I think in some ways that's kind of just, I mean, people did the same thing with Kylo Ren.
That's true. That's true. And so maybe it speaks more to us as a society and a culture than anything that we're willing to latch on to clearly a villainous message.
Yeah, I mean, Kylo Ren wasn't ever intended to be anything but the villain. Like, he do you think we've had some issues? He was complicated. There were some reasons that he was the way he was, but I think that as a culture,
have we been so programmed to look at all villains as sympathetic that we see it even when it's not there? Like, at least some people do, because they've really pushed the last 2 decades at least. Every villain has to have a sympathetic backstory, which I don't love. It's fine occasionally. Even Lucas sort of brought Vader back around and gave Anakin sort of a sympathetic backstory, but he did not do that with Palpatine. But you have people calling for Palpatine to get some sort of sympathetic backstory, and then you get crap like The Acolyte, where they try to not even do the sympathetic. We've devolved from sympathetic backstory to trying to say, well, they're not really bad. There's no such thing, like good, bad,
murdering people.
Yeah. But maybe we've gotten so accustomed to sympathetic villain that we look for it even when it's not there. I don't know. But in this movie, we get some lines from the villains about, no successful person ever got where they were without doing some shady stuff. And we have a whole universe full of heroes that got to where they are without doing some shady stuff.
I mean, yes, but I mean, even Tony Stark,
Tony's not a good example.
No, but he's kind of I think he's the one they're mostly talking about.
But what did Tony do? Tony was a weapons manufacturer, a business he inherited, that he shut down.
But I think that
But that's to say that weapons manufacturing is a shady process, but there's nothing shady about weapons manufacturing
per
in
se,
it in its own right. And it's Obadiah Stane that does all the shady stuff with the Stark business.
speaking of,
That's the best part of this show.
oh my gosh, yes,
A twist I did not expect was the son of Obadiah Stane, Ezekiel Stane. And not just that, I really like Alden Ehrenreich as an actor.
yes.
I think that he's kind of gotten.
He's so weird.
He is. He does weird
He
really
does
well.
weird really well. No, I mean, I thought he did a great job as Han Solo doing the cool
I
swab
did too.
thing.
I did too. I feel like he picked up a lot of the mannerism. I understand why people. I think it was going to be a problem. I still of the mind that they should have not ever recast anyone in Star Wars, or they should have bit the bullet from day one, said, here's your new Luke, here's your new Han, here's your new Leia, and this is what we're doing. Just bite the bullet and do it. I think if they had done that, then maybe it would have worked out. But I think where we kind of went, well, we're not going to recast, and we're not going to give you these stories that you already kind of know in the expanded universe. They didn't have to throw out the entirety of the expanded universe to tell stories from the expanded universe. And they still bring in little bits and pieces, but
all that to say,
they should have either gone all in or not. But yes, that's a huge reveal.
Yeah.
Now he's a little unhinged. Like once he starts, like it's like he's like kept himself very sheltered out of fear of becoming his father.
Mm-hmm.
And then like
thanks for teaching me to stand up for myself.
Right, as soon as the shackles are removed, he ain't quite right.
No, he definitely ain't quite right. But
he keeps his dad's ashes just in his kitchen. What do you mean he's not quite right? That's what I was about to say.
Well, I mean, people keep
we
the
were
ashes
close
of a parent or a
in
grandparent.
a Ziploc bag in your kitchen.
Well, right. That's not having the ashes is not the weird or abnormal part. Like that's completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
But
we
the fact
were
that
close.
in a Ziploc bag in like a
them
cookie
up.
tin or something, and
vacuums them up and throws them back in the bag.
Yeah. No, I do like that. I want to see where they're going with that. So so I've said this a lot of times on this channel. So before I start ripping this show apart for some of the things that are really, the more I contemplate, the worse I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a story first person. Mm-hmm. I say this all the time. You can do a lot of things wrong. And if you tell me a good story, I'm still going to be somewhat invested. Mm-hmm. I think the story is pretty good. Mm-hmm. I think that, and I think it's I don't, when I say well acted, I want to be careful what I say because it's not the whole cast. A lot of the cast is really abysmal. What's her name that plays Riri? Thorne. Last name's Thorne.
I don't know.
Can't think of her name. She's doing a really solid job at presenting the character she's been given.
Yeah, Natalie's great.
Natalie's great. The concept's not. The AI, it's the idea of the AI itself that doesn't seem to function as an AI. Doesn't really work. But I think the actress is doing a fine job. Alden Ehrenreich doing a fine job. So I think your main actors.
The mom.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to like the mom, but the mom kind of got better as we went.
Poor mom.
And then the guy playing the main villain, playing the Hood, mm-hmm. is a stellar actor.
And the his sidekick is phenomenal.
Yeah. So
he was great.
Right.
Although I have to say, I think that to go back to what you were saying about the villains, I think that the villains in this show, like you buy that they are villains. Like, I mean, what do you think? Do you feel like they're kind of presenting them more sympathetically, or do you think?
No.
I think they're presenting them as villains pretty well. honestly.
No, I agree with that. I think they're presented well as villains, but they're Hood and John were both characters that work.
Mhm.
The rest of the crew, I don't buy the hacker. The only one they had, the only one of the just the crew that I thought like worked in the show was Rampage. Um, we killed Rampage, we killed John. That was two of the better characters we had going here.
Mhm.
Um, but like the blood siblings or whatever they are, we're supposed to buy them as like super tough. Like I don't buy it. I don't buy the hacker. Um,
Was it Riri the hacker?
Riri is not the hacker.
Riri's
Isn't it
the
Hacker
tech.
The drag
Rampage?
queen is the hacker.
Okay.
I don't like that person can't act.
Yeah, they're fairly.
Like we put
One note.
that actor in this show to check a box. I'm sorry, that's what we did. She can't act. He can't act. I don't.
They. I think it's they.
Yeah, whatever.
They can't act.
But the crew is very disposable.
Yeah. Yeah. The blood. I've most of the crew I feel the same way. Like, the pyromaniac.
Clown.
Yeah, like she's just a little interesting. I feel like she could, but
they're stupid. The whole crew is so stupid. Now Rampage is dead, so like, Iana and I discussed that we would have really liked to have seen Rampage, doing something with Luis's crew from Ant-Man.
oh,
But can't happen
It
now.
would have fit so well. It would have been really funny. I mean, there's already a hacker on that, or what was his job? I forgot what Rampage.
I mean, so they have a hacker and then they have a tech person.
Okay. Yeah, he would have
He was the tech person. So, your tech person might do some hacking, but it's, not all they do.
Yeah.
But they have like a dedicated hacker.
So I think
Slug.
that's an
Slug.
interesting, because like
Slug.
the crew from Ant-Man, they weren't around just a whole lot, but they had really good chemistry. Like they were an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that they didn't quite nail that as well.
Yeah.
With this one.
Like
I agree. The blood siblings as the hitters are real boring.
Yeah.
Like, come on. I want to see Christian Kane come and kick some people's
Plus,
butts.
it's like, I mean, but it ain't. This is the MCU. Like our hitters. I mean, we could have gone with enhanced individuals at this point as our hitters. Like, and I understand some of the. I don't know who's from a comic and who's not here. To be frank, I just don't know. But the thing about the Ironheart character, this is a character that was wholly rejected as a comic book character. And then we decided to do her in live action, which is fine. But like, ditch the story that didn't work. Like, sometimes it's okay to ditch the source material.
I feel like there's a character arc that's kind of happening with Riri, though. I
do too, but I need to see. I don't just need to see her like, oh, now she's a hero. Like, I need a repentance arc. Like, I need some some recognition that these things. Now we've gotten hints that I think that's where we're going.
I mean, I feel
there are people in her life calling her out on her crap.
Like Natalie.
Well, the teacher or the dean of the school at MIT or whatever she is, Riri gives the sob story and she goes, that's a bunch of crap. And then even the little kid, when she first crash lands, the one that helps her with the wagon, is like, that is the lamest thing I've ever seen. Still don't understand why the kid's like, I could help you with this wagon, and they put some of the stuff in the wagon, but she's still wearing like half of it, and maybe it's that it doesn't come off because it's powered down. I don't know. But
like some of it was falling off, so presumably that's the stuff that's going in the wagon.
They should have given an explanation at least.
One of the characters, there's a couple of characters that are just kind of like they occur, and then I don't know who that was. The guy that is at her mother's house.
Mhm.
that kind of calls her out, like, what are
Natalie's
you,
brother.
is it Natalie's brother that's
Yeah.
kind of like, what are you into?
Mhm.
And then even Natalie starts to call her out on
Mhm.
things. The interesting thing, here's what I find interesting about Natalie. Natalie is not Natalie. Natalie is her inner monologue of Natalie.
Right.
It's Riri's inner monologue of what Natalie would tell her.
Mhm. So it's herself.
Yeah. So it's her, and Natalie is sort of her conscience,
Mhm.
literally.
Mhm.
Um, and Natalie is not Natalie's memories, it's her memories of Natalie forming this.
Right.
So, despite the fact that it doesn't function as an AI, because it's not, and this is where I'm like, I don't know if this really works, because I do want my science to say somewhat consistent. It's not behaving like an AI.
Mhm.
It's a little too free thinking.
But they have made it clear that this, like, brain scan created AI is a different animal than any
Well, they
other.
have,
Yeah.
but they also kind of indicated that the brain scan AI should have just scrambled Riri's brain.
I think we're going to find out that she's got something else going on.
I don't even think they got room for that, but maybe. But I also like,
Speaking of something else going on, when are we getting another season of Miss Marvel?
we're not, but they're talking about another
What?
movie. They are talking about another movie.
She's so cute.
I don't know. I think that you're going to see.
Can she just be the new Captain Marvel? I
See,
like
that
her
would be
better than
ideal.
Brie Larson.
I mean, here's the thing: like, we could literally bring in anyone, like Yvonne Strahovski as Captain Marvel. Anyone, like, we're still in the multiverse saga, so like, give us Marvel. David was talking about this last night.
Mhm.
David was talking about this on Twitter last night. Was, if they had truly given us Marvel
Mhm.
first,
Right.
give us Marvel, give us, Miss Marvel, not current Miss Marvel, like, um, what Brie Larson's character should have started as.
Mhm.
Give us Marvel, and like, then you would have had a character in place that could have picked up the reins when you lose Cap and Iron Man and these others. That character probably could have been the one that carried the MCU forward. But they opted not to do that. Now, I've derailed my thought process, but
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
AI.
Yes,
for
I
Riri.
think there might be something else going on. Speaking of something else, back up. Yeah, AI. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, but you were talking about how it should have scrambled her brain, and
Yeah, but I was going somewhere else beyond that, and I don't remember what it was. That dog is going to tear my house apart.
it's a dog. Okay, I was like, what is that child doing in the next
No,
room?
no, it's a dog under the house.
The AI having panic attacks is kind of interesting.
Well, see, that's the whole thing. The AI having the panic attack, and it doesn't really have a panic attack as much as it just quits working. It ceases to function. It locks up. It's like a bug in the system that makes the system freeze. And then we see her, and then it's because Riri has trauma involving a gun, the AI can't, it has no idea how to function in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, when she's having a panic attack, when they're in the garage, when Riri's having a panic attack, and then Natalie goes, "Okay, you were having a panic attack," and so I guess it's just linked to whatever Riri's feeling.
Well, yeah. Well, it's not even linked. It's literally it's Riri's memories. So Riri has a undealt with trauma, and
that she ain't even kind of like pretended to deal with.
Oh, I know where I was going. So, kind of backing up, and I don't want to go too much longer here because I really only want to do about half an hour on this show, but we're trying to cover it before the new episode tonight. But does it bother anyone else that when, first of all, we have a thing in this country where a lot of people are in college that don't necessarily need to be there. Why is Riri in college? Other than the fact she has the Stark Fellowship. But when that Stark Fellowship ends, why is Riri not just calling the Wakandans, or like,
That's a good.
Like
question.
Riri's like, well, now I have no way forward with my stuff. It's like, what? It's like, call Shuri, go back to Wakanda, work on your, like, what are we doing here? Like,
Mhm.
we glossed over the fact that she has other connections.
Yeah.
Just not to mention, she's at this point, she's only at MIT because she's got grant money there. But like, we're talking like someone that we're supposed to buy as this world-class intellect. You know how much the tech companies in this MCU universe would care about her finishing a degree? Not one bit.
Right.
Like this idea that, oh, my fellowship is up, my grants money's gone, so now I have nothing.
Yeah. I feel like that's a little bit of a
Like
plot
why are
hole.
we not like calling, like, actually I have a problem. I have this particular problem with a lot of characters in the MCU. Why are we not just calling Pepper Potts?
Yeah.
Saying, hey Pepper, I got a problem and you can solve it.
Yup.
Like, we're gonna pretend this character doesn't exist anymore? Like all
And
these
maybe
characters
Gwyneth
that are
Paltrow
like,
just got to be too expensive.
well, like Hawkeye running around New York City with no money, no resources. And don't get me wrong, that Hawkeye series I still say is the best, far and away best MCU series.
Okay.
It's the best TV series.
Okay.
Which one would you put over it? WandaVision?
WandaVision's great. Loki's also great.
Loki season 2 was great. Loki season 1 was okay.
Right.
I'm not saying that like those aren't great shows. I just think so. Loki feels like a TV series that got chopped. I mean, a movie that got chopped up into episodes. Several of the series feel like movies that got chopped up. Hawkeye is the only one that follows an actual television formula.
I still think WandaVision's better, but that's fine. You can feel differently. WandaVision, then Hawkeye, then Loki. Okay.
See, there were things about, I liked everything about the Hawkeye series. There were things about the WandaVision that didn't, series.
What about
that I
you?
didn't like.
What's your ranking?
Well, probably Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, and then maybe WandaVision. I really liked WandaVision.
Which one did you put at the top?
Probably Hawkeye. That's the only one I've watched twice, so I'm kind of biased towards that one in that sense.
I feel like
Miss Marvel was great too.
Miss Marvel is fantastic. Here's the thing: Iman Vellani just kind of carries whatever they put her in, and if they don't, I'm just telling you, when it gets time for this for this next Avengers film, if they don't lean heavily on Chris Pratt, Haley Steinfeld, Iman Vellani, if they don't lean heavily on those people, those are your people with charisma in the MCU right now. Like, those are your people.
Iman Vellani can make anything work. She's just so good.
Yeah.
She's so perfect, and she's just, I think that she's going to prove to be a really talented actor just in general, but specifically as this character, she's just.
Yeah. Now, like I said, this current show, this Ironheart show, like, there are things that I'm just that are difficult to buy. I don't like the Hood's costume. I think it looks like
Dracula.
No, I think it looks like it came off a Halloween costume store shelf.
A Halloween costume of Dracula.
Maybe Dracula. It doesn't. A Dracula cape would look better. It looks like a cheap rain poncho.
I mean, when he has the cape plus like the fancy shirt he has on the first episode, it looks kind of like Dracula. I'm just saying. I think they could have done better with that costume. I will say one thing that I really do like. This show made it really clear to me how much I miss the heavy feeling metal mechanical armor.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of times around with Iron Man, we were nanotech.
Yeah.
and it's fine. It's a little cartoony sometimes.
Yeah.
But this was the problem. I don't know if you ever watched Pacific Rim, at least the second one. The second Pacific Rim. The first one, everything feels heavy and mechanical, and the world feels like it has real weight to it. I mean, these giant machines,
These mechs.
these giant mechs feel like they have the weight to them. In the second one, it's all CGI, and nothing feels heavy.
Yeah.
Everything feels too light. And I feel like that's kind of what the nanotech took from us was that armor. So hopefully when we get Armor Wars, if that's actually still being made, we get some heavy duty tech like this.
Forgot about that.
Is that still like a thing?
Yeah. In fact, I think I heard that it went from being a TV series to a movie.
Okay.
Which means that somebody's got some faith in whatever they're doing with it. So real quick, I know there was something else I wanted to say. So overall, I'm going to say this show right now, I'm going to put towards the bottom, but I don't really give rankings till I've seen it all. But it's kind of, and I'm going to say this has been a real curse with things, but I'm going to say it anyway. It depends on the finale in a big way. It depends on how
it ends.
The third act is going to be what determines how I feel about this. I can already tell you that. I can ignore some of the things I don't like if you give me a really good third act.
Yeah. And I do feel like this one is building towards
towards a third act, but let's see what that third act is. Like, you know, we had a couple other things, you know, one I already mentioned in Secret Invasion, where I was like, maybe they can save it with a third act, and then the third act was worse than the whole rest of the show. It
was bad.
Like the third act was literally the worst part.
And they killed Mariah Hill in the first episode, so that's hard to top in badness.
Yeah. So
I think it has potential, personally.
So this is the question I want to ask, so we can, as we wrap up discussing Ironheart. What has to happen in the last 3 episodes for this show to work for you?
You want to start?
Sure. Well, they gotta make Riri. I started to kind of like her as a character, but they gotta make her with a bit more heroic intentions, I suppose. I guess they gotta explain Natalie in a satisfying way.
Explain.
Just make sense and help. I guess get Riri to process her trauma and understand exactly what's going on with Natalie and her being part of her brain or whatever.
Okay.
And then I don't know. They guys do something cool with the villains. I don't really have a lot of. I don't really know what exactly I want them to do with it, to be real.
Do you remember the days whenever we would say, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I have faith that it's going to be great.
I mean,
you just believed that it was going to be great. Weren't those the days? Those were the days.
This is where I say that, we used to be that way with, if a Star Wars was coming out, we just assumed it was going to be,
great.
Going to be great. If a Marvel, for years we assumed if a Marvel movie was coming out, it was going to be great.
I remember Daniel and his pessimistic self say if they made a Squirrel Girl movie, he'd think it was going to be great.
Yeah. Well, there was a point where Marvel was literally just printing money, that they could do no wrong. And unfortunately for Marvel, and I've said this here on the show over the last few weeks, last couple of times I got on here, Disney has burned up all of the goodwill with the fans, all. And Star Wars has probably burned more of it than anyone, and Star Wars has burned a lot of Marvel's goodwill.
Yeah, I think so.
The Star Wars
there's
goodwill
a lot of overlap.
The Star Wars goodwill that's been burned has just really burned everybody with Disney products. I think while the MCU has certainly had a few stinkers, I don't think they've had anything on par with the debacle that was The Last Jedi. And look, if you're watching this and you love The Last Jedi, I'm actually not talking about even whether it was good or bad. Okay, so I don't like it. If you like it, that's fine. But what I think is undeniable about The Last Jedi is, regardless of how you feel about that movie, it absolutely turned the fandom upside down and shook it.
On
It
purpose.
on purpose. On purpose. You took the biggest IP on the planet and you turned it upside down and you just shook it to bits.
Yeah. So as far as the next 3 episodes, I think we need to see, I agree with Iana. I think we need to see Riri process some of her trauma. Like, she's clearly just trying to box it up and not deal with it. And we've seen, WandaVision was basically what happens whenever you don't deal with your trauma. And so I think we need to see, she has a good support structure. She needs to lean into it. And she also needs to lose this kind of attitude that she has, this sort of, that she started out with, like, everybody's out to get her.
Right.
Because nobody's out to get her. She just keeps making bad decisions.
Right.
And so I think we really just need to see her grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
We need to see her take some responsibility
I
for her
think that's
actions.
the big thing.
And we need to see her really, instead of being like, well, you got to do shady stuff to get stuff done, and that's kind of been how she's justifying. I think she needs to acknowledge that she's been justifying her actions.
Well, I do like at this point that she hasn't been, the villain said that line.
Yeah.
Which, holding true to what Ryan Coogler has done, I think that she eventually will push back against that sentiment. That's Killmonger in the first Black Panther, gives his line that everybody latched on to, but it's not the theme of the movie. The theme of the movie ends up being T'Challa's speech at the end of the movie, which is, that we have to work together.
Right.
One tribe. That's the point of the movie, not Killmonger's line. And the second one kind of did some similar stuff with Shuri having to go through a similar arc where she confronts basically Killmonger in the afterlife, and has to eventually, and she embraces it momentarily, and goes on a rampage to try to kill Namor. But I think for this show to work for me, I agree with everything y'all said. The character's got to grow up. If we want to bring her into our pantheon of heroes, she's got to grow up and she's got to learn to work with other people. Right now, I don't see her as a character that could work as part of a team.
Yeah.
Not a real team. She barely functions as part of this. This team she's on now doesn't function as a team.
Right.
They're all in it for themselves.
But she's got to actually take a moral stance on something.
Yes. I need her to have a moment where she shrugs off these ideas that she's been chasing so far. This greed. But I still say a lot of the problem is just, I still say there's to some degree, you're just having her have no money just so she goes through this arc when that arc just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But she could go work for Stark Tech. She could go work for any of these other number of companies that we know exist. I mean, heck, she's a crook. She could go work for, what's his name? What was Stark's competitor? Hammer.
Justin Hammer.
She'd go work for Justin Hammer.
Is he in jail?
Who knows where Justin Hammer is? I don't know. He may be in jail.
I don't remember any of the Iron Man movies.
I don't remember where Justin Hammer is, but that is to say, like,
there's options.
There are options for someone that intelligent. If we're gonna say she's this intelligent, then she's not just gonna have to like go it alone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I think the show is kind of riddled with some problems. Some of them maybe nitpicks on my part. Some of them are story issues. Some of them are kind of foundational story issues of where it calls into question motivation.
Right.
But the truth is that I enjoyed watching that show, and I enjoyed it more with each episode, and I hope that continues tonight. There are things that could happen. There are things that could happen that could absolutely make me just say, nope, done with this. I've seen a lot of people saying this is the worst thing that Disney that had Disney Plus has ever created. To which I say, shame on you. Did you not hear about The Acolyte?
Willow.
Hey, this is better than Willow.
It is. Well, it is. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Well, the Willow did get better as it went.
Well, that was what I was going to say. Willow's one redeeming thing was that its final arc, the third act, was actually okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch Willow or The Acolyte.
And now you never will.
Yeah, because it's gone.
I'm sure Willow exists out there in some, some pirated, maybe, find it on a, on a DVD cart in New York City.
Yeah. So, I think you're really kind of hit the nail on the head here, Nick, that there's a lot of bad movies happening. I've worked on a couple of them, but yes, this whole this vendetta against existing fans is a bizarre thing that Disney seems to really be leaning into, and it's not.
Well, I think that
smart.
I think Kathleen Kennedy, I think on the Star Wars side, I think Kathleen Kennedy actually approves.
Yeah.
Like all indication are she doesn't have an issue with it. I think Bob Iger's at a point where I don't know if he cares.
Yeah.
I think Bob Iger's tenure is done at Disney. I think that he's a placeholder at the moment. And so I don't think, but it is absolutely remarkable that a company as big as Disney would allow their actors to go out and attack the fans over and over and over again. Yeah, it's like, oh, what's her name?
Rachel Zegler.
Rachel Zegler killed that Snow White movie months before it ever came out in theaters.
She killed that Snow White movie before they had even finished filming.
And it's not a racist thing. It's not a bigoted thing. It's a you couldn't shut your mouth thing. It's like you can't tell people that they're dumb and racist and this and that, and then them go buy your product. It doesn't work that way. And somebody's going to say, "Oh, the movies aren't a product." Yes, they are. 100%. They are a product.
Yeah.
If they're not a product, if they're not a product, what are they? And don't say art. Art is not a good answer. Does it take artists to create a movie? Is the movie itself art?
Sometimes not. Sometimes not.
But and now they've got that same problem with Pedro. Pedro is doing his absolute best to destroy this Fantastic Four movie before it comes out. Honestly, I don't think anybody would be having a major issue with this Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, the trailers look cool.
The trailers look cool. I don't think anybody would be having a major. I think you're always going to have people. I don't want to say nobody because you're always going to have people that have an issue.
Yeah.
But the major issue they're having right now is that Pedro went out and called half of the available audience. I'm not even, I mean, he's gone through the whole name calling thing, called people racist, called people Nazis, called people all these things. Funny enough, he couldn't even defend his co-star when she got in trouble over mentioning 1940s Germany. And not even calling anyone Nazis. And, he's out there doing that crap. And then, they're way too over invested in Pedro for him to be running his mouth like that.
Yeah, he's running all the things.
That's true. Art does not have to be a product. Some people, art for art's sake is not necessarily.
If you're making a living on it, it's a product.
Yeah, but there are lots of people, if you're making a living on it, but lots of artists, even artists who were artists for a living, also created massive tons of art that were never presented to the public until after they died.
That's true.
And that is art for art's sake. So art can be a product, but art is not necessarily a product. I create art. I do photography. I don't sell my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, not that I wouldn't sell my stuff, but like I don't. So my art at this stage in my life is not a product.
It's just art.
It's
but at the
for
point
my
where
own
you
self.
start tailoring what you make to what people will buy, it becomes a product.
Yes. Well, and that's the problem, is they're not marketing. It's like when you look at Disney strategy and you go, who is your
Right.
Who are you trying to sell this to? It's
people who
and that's the
agree with us
problem,
on
is
everything.
Disney is no longer trying to sell a product. They're trying to sell an ideology, and nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
Anyway, does anybody have any final thoughts on
Ironheart?
I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful.
I'm optimistic. Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be a perfect series, but is it something that I would regret? I mean, at this point, I have no regrets about watching it.
No.
I heard someone use the phrase nauseously optimistic before. That's what it feels
Yeah, I saw that. So I haven't seen a whole lot from the actress playing Invisible Woman. However, the actor playing the Human Torch not only called his comic book character problematic, but said that Chris Evans' portrayal of Captain America in the MCU was toxic masculinity. Look, I'm sorry. I don't care if I offend you on this, but the whole mantra, anytime you hear someone say toxic masculinity, just take toxic off. What they mean is they don't like masculinity. Period.
I mean, does toxic masculinity exist? Is Captain America that?
No.
No.
In fact, I would say that Captain America is the
antithesis.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yes. No.
Yes. Does toxic behavior exist? Yes, it does. Is masculine behavior inherently toxic? No, but that's what Hollywood has been pushing for like 3 or 4 decades now.
Yeah. Which is funny because every once in a while it'll be like, and here we are with yet another Fast and Furious movie. Because it's a weird little pendulum thing they have going there.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so you can go now, and you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave if you'd like to. All right, thank you for joining us, Iana, my love.
All right, let me turn her mic off so we're not echoing in it. And
yes.
Yeah, I would say bullying behavior in general is just toxic, and you get that in I think you get that in all groups of people. But like yes, I agree. Like what you get, especially the sort of like
Flash
stereotypical jock in an 80s movie. Yeah, that's Biff. Biff is toxic masculinity. Ugh. Right? So bullies smaller men, treats girls and women like objects. Yeah, but it's I think the thing they failed to realize is that there's toxic people in all walks of life. And this whole I'm just, when they say toxic masculinity, they've proven what they just mean is masculinity. It's why so many people, attack Chris Pratt on the regular. because he's someone in Hollywood that actually
Isn't worried about being perceived as actually masculine.
right.
Yeah.
You know, it's the reason that over the last couple of decades people started hating on people like Clint Eastwood.
Just crazy.
Anyway,
I mean, okay, now do we see some toxic masculinity in some of his characters? Yes. But
sure.
but also, like, is Killmonger not toxic masculinity? But yet he's okay.
He's toxic
because,
something.
but I mean, the thing.
But I wouldn't even say that his is necessarily toxic masculinity. He's just a garbage human.
But you know, so but it's okay if it's a villain who's putting these traits forward, you know, because if they had something sad to happen to them.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Other things I want to cover real quick before we wrap up. Getting a little longer than I meant to. We may not get through everything, so we may have to do another show tomorrow. But we went to Mississippi Comic-Con this week.
We did.
And I'm going to do 2 shows on this because I want to bring the kids, whichever kids will come on with me to let them. I'll probably do a whole separate Padawan Report episode with them to let them to get their take on it, because obviously I value their opinion on stuff like this from a totally different perspective than mine.
Mm-hmm.
This was the worst con I ever went to.
Yeah.
And Mississippi Comic-Con has always been a delight.
Mm-hmm. Last year we got to see Alan Tudyk, and he was great. We got to talk to him. We went to his panel. We got to go see Biff. We got to, and you know, it was just a nice, it was, the kids had a great time. Like, they were really excited, but literally we didn't get there until noon. And we were slap out of stuff to do by 4 p.m. There was not a damn.
We were out of stuff to do by 3. We just kind of wandered around and pretended like we were going to find something else to do after that.
Yeah. The shopping was unfortunate.
Yeah. So then that's what I want to talk about first. Was I literally bought one object, a nice handmade wood board with Han Shot First on it,
like shot glasses.
And I probably paid too much for it, although it's a handmade product, so maybe not. But I literally bought it because it was the only cool vendor in the entire vendor hall. Mm-hmm. Look, I understand that the place is selling stuffed animals and Funko Pops and those things, like
those Lungify bags.
Right. Like, yeah, of course you're going to have those at a con. Like, and I'm sure they do a lot of business, but we had an entire vendor hall of nothing but that. No real artists. Mm-hmm. And this is something has really been taking off at other cons, is one, individual artists has always been a big thing. They really didn't have any. They had a couple of like people that I hesitate to even call artists, who were basically just duplicating other people's art and selling it. And I don't even know why we're bringing in vendors that do that.
Yeah.
That's sort of questionable anyway. And, you know, when we go to Dragon Con in particular, we get lots of small companies, big companies, but companies that are actually manufacturing cool stuff. They're making their own products.
Yeah.
My drinking horn here is one that came from Dragon Con. You can't see it on screen. It's got the Tree of Gondor carved into it. I probably have some other stuff. The company that does the Norse Foundry stuff, the Dice Tower, you can't really see it behind Marisha's head here, but like all the Dice Tower, Dice Vault, all that.
This
Wormwood
print here.
Yeah, that's
we
got that at Comic-Con New Orleans.
I think so. Yeah.
We've
got like 4 prints by him though.
Move your head. Yeah, that one's from New Orleans, and then I bought
one from Celebration too.
Yeah, I bought one.
That one's from Celebration. That one says Star Wars Celebration on it.
No, but it was a Star Wars Celebration print that was left over.
Oh, okay.
from a year before we went to Celebration. The one I bought from him at Celebration, he actually
drew
drew
on Vader's Tower.
Vader's castle on the bottom of it. So
Yeah, we've got
that one's hanging somewhere else.
And honestly, like our kids always buy artwork at cons,
Yeah.
and there was literally none to buy.
No, there was no art. So that was very, very disappointing. I will say, so here's what I think Mississippi Comic-Con did wrong. They're never going to hear this, but I hope they do. It's always been a 2-day con. Look, we went for one day. We always go to Mississippi Comic-Con for 1 day. Why do we only go for 1 day? Because it's a small con. You can see everything there is to see
in 1 day.
In 4 hours. 4 hours, you can walk around. You can look at every vendor in the hall. You can go visit all the fan groups. You can go to panels. But what they did this year was they got greedy and they expanded this 2-day con to a 3-day convention. And all that meant that these cons have these small cons have very few panels to start with. They got greedy. They tried to spread their panels out so that people would buy 3-day passes. I'm not doing 3 days at Mississippi Comic-Con. It's not big enough. And I love the con, but you spread it out. So basically we got there on Saturday. The only panel that occurred that day, we actually didn't get there in time to make it to, was we did get this, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera or not with the glare. Barry Lowen, one of the guys in the suit for Mandalorian. We were able to meet him, get an autograph and all that, but we missed his panel. But there were other actors there. Ron Perlman was there, but his panel was on Sunday. There were a couple others there that I would have liked to have gone and seen, but their panels were on Friday. They spread it out too far, and there is not enough stuff to justify spending 3 days.
Yeah, no.
At Mississippi Comic-Con.
No. And I was a little surprised the kids didn't want to do the costume contest.
There was a costume contest?
Yeah.
Okay, because Mississippi Comic-Con didn't even have one last year.
Really? I know they had one a few years ago because the kids
they used to do one.
And Adeline threw up all over.
That's another thing I've started noticing. Small cons not having costume contests. And when I say small, I'm not talking about your little bitty like local conventions. I'm talking even like New Orleans Comic-Con doesn't have a costume contest anymore. They used to have a really big one.
They didn't have a costume contest anymore?
They do not. They didn't this past year.
That's weird.
I don't think they've done a costume contest since the new company took over. You remember they're not Wizard World anymore. They're Fan Expo.
Okay.
And I don't believe they do a costume contest at all anymore. And then you turn around and go to a con like Dragon Con and you get like half a dozen costume contests.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are like major events. Are you fans of the Old Guard? Is this the Old Guard? Is that remind me who's in that? Is that a Netflix movie? Or am I thinking of something completely unrelated? I hope I didn't just cut my feed off. Because I know we have a second movie coming out. Yeah. So I did watch this movie. I enjoyed the first one when I watched it. I found it a little bit. Unfortunately, I found it a little bit forgettable. I can't remember that much about the movie, but I did enjoy watching it. And I know that we have the sequel coming. When is that sequel coming? First one was in 2020.
It's an unfortunate year to release a movie.
It was, and I think that's kind of why it got lost. But Charlize Theron. I'm trying to remember who's in the new one. But yeah, I don't remember that much about the first one. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again.
July 2nd. So
I am excited. Oh, it was Uma Thurman they added to the sequel.
Ooh.
So Charlize Theron and Uma Thurman.
Sounds worth watching.
Yeah, definitely one I will watch. So we'll be talking about that on here at some point, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Ubaldo, when does the sequel come out?
July 2nd.
July 2nd. Oh, did I pull that up or did somebody say
You
that?
just pulled it up.
So
is that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
So means you need to watch. You haven't watched the first one, have you?
Sounds like not. No.
So this is part of something that Netflix has done some. So I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so like I grew up in what I would consider the heyday of action flicks for action's sake. Like we could have an action flick and it didn't need a deep story, it didn't need anything special. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was
Didn't need to be able to
Jean-Claude Van
act.
Damme, it was
Just needed to be there and look cool.
Yeah, it was
Kick
just
some people's butts.
yeah.
Rambo.
Rambo. Yeah. Rambo was Juan's dog.
Okay.
Which is why it was Rambo and not Rambo. The dog's name was Rambo, except
Okay.
with an Ecuadorian accent.
Okay.
But no, like Netflix has very quietly made some of the best throwback action flicks out there. The couple of things that were done with Chris Hemsworth. I'm going to blank on the name now. Amazon's kind of gotten in on this too, although theirs are a little more story oriented with things like The Terminal List with Chris Pratt. That's a brilliant one. Second season of that's coming.
Yeah, he was like he was like saving a kidnapped kid. I don't remember I don't remember the name of the movie, but I remember the movie.
But those and then this movie, the Old Guard, and then let's see, there was some other stuff. A Six Underground with Ron Reynolds.
Yeah, that one was fun.
So
this one where they just had numbers, right?
Yeah. So I really enjoy those movies. I sometimes feel like those movies don't get as much attention as they ought to, and some of those have been theater worthy and just sat on Netflix and done whatever they do there. But I mean,
we pay $17 a month to watch them, so clearly something.
It's true. But do you have, before we kind of move on, any other thoughts on Mississippi Comic-Con?
The kids had a great time. The kids really had a great time because they had cool costumes and lots of people took their pictures.
It's true.
That's all they need to have a great con.
It's true. But also when we go to a con, we're used to getting on the con floor, like 9 o'clock in the morning and staying until they kick us out. And at 3:30, everybody was just kind of like,
Like, I would like for there to be more to do.
Yeah.
But there's not.
So
do better next time, friends.
Very, very disappointed in their move to a 3-day con. You're not big enough. No. It really made me consider, because we're kind of working on launching a con, and we've made the decision that when at least the first year to be a 1-day convention. And it really kind of made me go, maybe we're always a 1-day convention.
Yeah.
Like, because we won't even be able to grow as big as Mississippi Comic-Con. We don't have the space here. Maybe one day when the new hotel gets opened up, we'll have, because there's some ballrooms there. So maybe then we'll be able to start to grow it. But yeah, it made me go, do it on 1 day. Just make it really, really good. Put all your panels on 1 day and be picky about your vendors.
Yeah.
If you've got limited vendor space, you need some selling stuff that kids are going to be interested in. But vendors with things adults want to buy at a Comic-Con are important too.
Yeah.
And Mississippi Comic-Con was very lacking in that department. So, I mean, I'll go back. It's our local con. It's one that we can do, just run up to for a day.
It's really the only one. New Orleans is too far away to go for 1 day.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. We've done it, but it's a little
fun.
much. The trip home sucks. You drive 3 hours down. You spend all day walking a convention floor, and then got to do a 3-hour drive home. Yeah, it's a bit much. Adam Project. totally deserved a theatrical release. One of the best films of that genre that I can think of.
And it was such a nice balance. It had the drama, it had the heart, it
was
had all the things, man.
At this point, I would just love to have it on physical media. I keep watching. They kind of acted like it was going to come out on physical, but it never has, as far as I'm aware.
Man, though, that kid is just something.
Yeah. He's going to wind up in one of the franchises. I don't know which one, but whichever one grabs that kid first, whether it be DC or Marvel or Star Wars.
I mean, he's currently signed on as Percy Jackson, but geez and Pete, how long are you going to wait between seasons of movies about teenagers?
Well, that's just a problem in general.
That is such.
I've lost all interest. I've lost all interest in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Millie Bobby Brown is freaking married.
I feel like there's some things that streaming in particular has taken away from us.
The pressure to get the next season out.
Yeah.
Like,
and look, some of these things are not truly TV. They're not really truly a TV format. They're like basically, it's a broken up movie. And I understand when you're making something that big, like it's going to take a little more time, but a little more time used to be like, it's going to take us a year and a half to get this season out if we were going to drop it all at once. But now it's like we're years between.
Okay. So like Rings of Power, you want to go to, okay, fine. You're going to jump 10 years. Your actors are adults. Right. But you're going to do that for Percy Jackson.
Right.
Like your actor was 12 when you started.
Right.
Like he's 18 now. Get with it, people.
Yeah. Another thing that I feel like, and it wasn't just streaming that took this. This is something I actually heard Michelle on Force of Light talking about recently, was because she's a big X-Files fan, was that why can't we have Monster of the Week, or Adventure of the Week formats anymore? And when you try, everybody screams it's a filler episode. And it's like, and I feel like streaming kind of did that in where we expect shows to be a single arc. And it's like, we've lost. I mean, I haven't watched any of the new track, so I don't know if the new track continues to follow. I'm assuming that new track is mostly arc centric, where
I really enjoyed Strange New Worlds. I mean, it had a lot of kind of just standalone episodes. I think it had some arcs, but it also
but it did do standalone adventure episodes. Okay. But
notably
I mean,
like, musical
but
episode.
the days of like story of things like the X-Files and Stargate. I got Nick here in the chat, so I'm going to mention Stargate. Stargate was fantastic at giving us Adventure of the Week. Didn't have to connect to anything else, but there were these threads that sort of tied everything together, and then eventually you'd kind of get a culmination of an arc. But you could still have episodes that didn't have to connect to anything, and nobody screamed, "Oh, it's a filler episode."
Though, even Stargate, though, the later seasons came more and more where it was all about the Ori or the whatever.
Right. And by the time you get to Stargate Universe, you were doing the so I would be interested in kind of looking through TV history and seeing when we lost that adventure episode format for just telling a single arc, because like X-Files did this in one of the more interesting ways that it's ever been done, and that you had the Monster of the Week episodes, but you also had what they call the mythology arc, the mythology story. So the mythology story is a running arc that runs through the whole thing, but then we might tell, like, we will do a Monster of the Week, and we might even give you a little trinket of information that's going to connect to the mythology arc, or we might ignore it altogether. And we just have Mulder and Scully go out and they go explore this thing, and then we never have to talk about that thing again.
Yeah.
And everybody gets like, that's the thing, like everybody now, it's like, I feel, but I don't feel like it's necessarily all on the studios. I feel like fans started at some point, fans started rejecting that kind of storytelling.
Yep. Filler episode. Mandalorian's an excellent example of, it's just a filler episode. It's like, it's not something cool happening.
Right. And that was the thing. The Mandalorian was sort of supposed to be, obviously we had an overall arc. Mandalorian was a good throwback to that way of storytelling where we have an arc, we have a story we're telling, but we can go on an adventure and it not have to tie directly to, which is a way more natural way to tell stories, by the way.
Yeah.
That's because it's closer to the way life works. Where, yeah, our life has an arc, but like every day doesn't affect, we have lots of days where we just get to the end of that day and go, okay, that one's gone. But like, yes, I very much miss.
Yeah, we used to get 26 episode seasons every year. Now we get 8 episodes every 3 years. Like, but why?
Yeah.
But why? So I think this does.
Oh, dang, is Alan here?
Oh, it's Alan.
Hey, Alan.
So Waldo mentioned that he's excited about Frankenstein, which I think is actually an interesting pivot into, like, this does look absolutely fascinating, but I would like to touch on just like what's coming up that kind of looks intriguing to you.
I mean, I am excited about Frankenstein. It looks very interesting.
It looks so like monster movie.
Yeah, like, look, I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate Guillermo del Toro. Like, not everything he does lands, but it's gonna be a Del Toro film. It's gonna be his style. It's gonna look cool visually. It's gonna be story heavy. I still really hate that we didn't get to see his vision for The Hobbit.
Yeah.
People forget that. Like, he was the one making the Hobbit movie, and it wasn't going, like, there were things that were just taking too long, and they ended up parting ways. And I think the problem was, and we saw this even with Peter Jackson, where the studio got a little too handsy with the project.
And honestly, I think Peter Jackson probably had a little more clout to keep them out of his business.
Yeah, but they still made him put stuff in there that he did not want.
Yeah.
The Tariel character, that was a studio push.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that was the deal with Del Toro when the studios started going, well, you have to do this and you have to do this, and Del Toro likes practical effects, and they were wanting to go way more digital, and I think they just couldn't come to terms, and he parted ways, and they brought Peter Jackson back, because at that point they just had to get somebody back in that knew how to make a Middle Earth movie.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see. It's and I mean, man, Oscar Isaac is just such a good actor.
He really is.
Even like, I know how much people hated Apocalypse, but I thought he was great as Apocalypse. Like, not that there weren't issues with that movie.
Well, this is one when we were talking Marvel shows earlier. One that I tend to kind of forget exists is Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
And I love Moon Knight. Good. But I still forget it exists. But it's worth watching, just because if you want to go, is Oscar Isaac a good actor? Just go watch Moon Knight. Watch him play 3 characters.
Right. It's something. Like, it's compelling enough that you're like, is he okay? Do we think he's actually okay? I don't know. He's an actor, But yeah, I'm super excited to see him as Victor Frankenstein. And they've tried a couple of times to sort of get the Monsterverse going.
Look, the fact that they decided to make The Mummy with Tom Cruise instead of just leaning into the beloved Brendan Fraser version of those
Mhm.
stories. And granted, the third one, it's real off track. Now, I don't know if you've seen. Rumor is that Brendan Fraser is coming back as Rick O'Connell. That they're making another movie.
I mean, I'm here for it.
Like, why not? Like, Brendan Fraser is having a massive renaissance as an actor. I'm
Because
so happy to see him back.
Everyone suddenly went, we loved him. What happened to him?
Yeah, I haven't actually watched that version. The trailers were not intriguing to me. It's not necessarily the kind of movie I go to watch Tom Cruise. Don't get me wrong. Tom Cruise
is good at what
when
Tom
they
Cruise
call
does.
Tom Cruise the last movie star, it's true. He's one of the few people out there that you put him in a movie and people just go see it because Tom Cruise is in it.
But should Tom Cruise be in The
one
Mummy?
of the greatest action stars of all time, which is why they put him in The Mummy. But it's not, I don't know. And I don't even know if it was what, effect he had on the movie. But, when I think Tom Cruise, I want to go see a Mission Impossible movie or a Top Gun movie or any other number of action films he's done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about The Mummy.
Yeah. I mean, if they can get Brendan Fraser back to do The Mummy, they can get a really good Frankenstein. I feel like they might actually be in a real position to get a MonsterVerse going again.
Yep. Well, Marisha worked on a horror movie that's is theaters right now.
Yes, it is.
The Relic, the Ritual. The Relic, something different. The Ritual,
yeah. Which I actually, it sounds like the movie is a little different than what we thought it was going to be, which sometimes happens whenever
editors got hold of it.
No, whenever distribution companies get a hold of things and they have opinions about how they want things edited, and so sometimes things are different than you think they're going to be. But yeah, we haven't seen it because we don't have a theater. But I'm excited about seeing it at some point.
Yeah, well, I guess we're gonna have to be making some trips to theaters here.
Mm-hmm.
I guess at some point I do have to wrap this show up, but there are other things I want to talk about, and I'm going to transition into one of those things now. We've got movies coming up real soon.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about one of them, but we have Superman and Fantastic Four both coming up this month, like real soon.
Yeah.
Like Superman, I think is this coming weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or it's an early release next week. I'm not sure which, but it's it's soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess Fantastic Four at the end of the month. Like, which one are you more interested in?
Superman, like 1,000%. 1,000% more interested in Superman.
I say that, and I figured that was the answer, but I also know that you really like the retro futurist vibe of Fantastic Four.
I think that this, like, the set design and the costumes for Fantastic Four look so cool. I would have loved to have worked on Fantastic Four.
Thanks for dropping in, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. But as far as just which one am I going to be beating down the doors to see first, it's going to be Superman. Although I'm intrigued by the Fantastic Four. I'm really excited about Superman. So
yeah. So what do you think? Like I'm sort of with you. I think that mostly at this point it's that I just have more faith in the Superman movie than I do. I'm concerned about Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic Four needed to be the movie that brought people back to the MCU, and I'm afraid that that's not going to be that's not what we're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little disappointed there.
Mm-hmm.
Superman, what do you think? Like you've seen these clips and stuff. Let's talk specifically about the clip that we saw of Superman the other day, where Superman is losing his temper over Lex Luthor stealing his
His
dog.
dog. I mean, he's a good old country boy. You don't mess with their dogs.
I mean, yeah. But like, so what do you think? Because there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, this isn't Superman because he's losing his cool a little bit."
I mean, he's a person. I don't want him to see like going. I don't want him to carry a gun and start shooting people. I don't want him to see him like. I wouldn't want to see him break Lex Luthor's neck in that moment. Like that would be very out of character. But like he's mad. I buy that.
Yeah. That's the thing, as I think some people, I did forget about Jurassic World. Unfortunately, it's and I'll come back to Jurassic World. I want to see it. I hadn't heard much about it yet. I've kind of intentionally avoided it because I don't know what I expect there. But
okay, but did you see the clip of Jonathan Bailey? So one of the actors was performing Richard III in London when they were filming the soundtrack. And he was like, "Ooh, can I come watch?" And he's like, "Ooh, can I bring my clarinet?" And kind of sit in the back. And whenever it got time to get, because he played like in college, so like a competent player. And when they got to like the theme for his character happened to be a clarinet solo, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to play?" He's like, "Oh, no. They got back around it. They're like, "Last chance, dude," and he did. That's like peak nerd moment. Is like you're a kid, and you're the age to have watched this stuff as a kid. You grew up obsessing over John Williams music, and then you get to sit with a professional orchestra,
every band nerd's dream,
and play the theme for your character in a Jurassic Park movie. I'll watch this movie just for that.
Yeah. But so I'm a little confused. First of all, I think that the scene, if you haven't seen the clip, is Superman barging into Lex Luthor's office, which is clearly bait. Like they've taken the dog and now they're videoing Superman throwing a fit. Like Superman's angry. We're gonna film it. We're gonna put it on blast on the internet and make him look crazy. Like that's what's happening in this scene. Like there's even the scene where Lex Luthor says something. He holds his mug up to his face and he kind of says it without moving his mouth, so you can't pick it up. So it doesn't get picked up on the video, and it makes Superman go freak out again. But I think people like the first thing this made me think of was pretty much every other version of Superman basically has had a moment where they've gotten angry, or they've kind of gone bad for a minute, or he's not we sometimes get this idea, oh, Superman's like, he's like godlike, right? And he's like this calm, and he's never never gets upset. It's like we don't want him to have emotion.
Very one note.
And we want him, and I it reminds me of the way people reacted to the elves. And I've got my own problems with the Rings of Power series, but like everybody
99
acting
problems,
like,
but the elves ain't one.
well, everybody acting like elves are these like stoic beings, and they're perfect, and they never do anything wrong, and they never get upset about anything, and they're just supposed to be like these wise
angelic
beings.
They ain't never read the Silmarillion. Them elves
are brutal. Elves are the most brutal race pretty much in all of Middle Earth. Like, because when they start killing,
they're implacable.
Like it's like, and I think a lot of this is people that like they don't reference the books. They reference the intro to the Fellowship of the Ring, and
Yeah.
it's the elves, the wisest and fairest of all beings, said by an elf,
Right. And
said,
also,
said by one of those elves that's
Right.
like a little unhinged,
yeah, has made some real questionable
like
decisions.
because this was the problem in the Rings of Power. Everybody's like, oh, Galadriel, like, you know, doing all this, like Galadriel
She has
is
a problem.
Galadriel comes to Middle Earth to seek power and kingdom. It's the
She's
only
a
reason she's
problem.
there.
Like, and after, at the end of the first stage, whenever the Valor step in and destroy the enemy and send him back to the void, they're like, and now you come back to Valinor, and they're like,
Right.
like literally, like Tolkien literally says that they are strongly advised, not outright commanded, but strongly advised to turn around and go back to Valinor. And they don't want to because they are too attached to because basically they can be the greatest things on Middle Earth or they can be the least in Valinor. And they
Right.
want to stay on Middle Earth and be.
Yeah. So, like, I think what people always took away from that opening scene was like, men are greedy, elves are, you know, wise and perfect. It's like, no, like, that's not the point of that opening scene. It's that men are greedier and more easily corrupted because they're not as wise. And when they say, oh, they're so wise, the elves are so wise, it's like, yeah, they've been around for thousands of years.
If you were 4,000 years old, you would have learned a thing or two by now.
Right. It's like, you know, immortal beings have this advantage when it comes to wisdom. Wisdom comes with time and age.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have a distinct advantage when it comes to wisdom.
Yeah.
Anyway, bringing that back to Superman.
So, okay, but we're going to come back to this, and you're going to tell me whether if you have listened to an audio version of it, and if it's Andy Serkis's version.
But bringing that back to Superman, I sometimes feel like, because we're presented with this idea of Superman over time in the comics and movies and everything, is like he, you know, where he's sort of has this thrust upon him that he can be the way to show humanity forward, because he has it within him to be that.
Right.
But he also doesn't have to be that. He could be evil. Like, he's not a perfect
He could be
being.
Zod.
Right. It's like, so we get really caught up on this wrong, like, idea of who Superman is. And the truth is that what he is, it's this idea of, it's going back, just to go back to Stan Lee, because, you know, Stan Lee it's with great power comes great responsibility. It's Clark, because you have this power.
Right.
You can be this person, this being, this whatever, that shows humanity a better way forward.
Right. Yeah.
It's not that he has to be, and that's his only option. He can be humanity's greatest enemy if he so chooses.
Right.
It's this little sort of thing he's tasked with by his father to show humanity a way forward.
Yeah.
Because that's the other side of that, is like, if it's not clear enough that his people aren't all good and angelic beings, they destroy their own world. So, yeah, so that's kind of, I don't understand, but what I find funny about that scene is that the scene has evoked in people exactly what the scene in the movie is supposed to evoke in the world of that movie. It's, oh, our hero can't act like that. And it's like, so even if, like, you know, he's like, oh, you know, a lot of people say, well, he's a Christ figure. It's like, Jesus turned over tables. Like, you know, it's like, at what point did we decide that anger in itself
is wrong? Yeah. So my concern is making Superman look weak in the trailer. So, like,
at which point is there a specific moment in the trailer And I mean, physically weak, emotionally weak, all of the above. I know some people pointed to the moment where like somebody hits him in the back of the head with like a can or something as he's walking and he flinches. That moment I take as like, it doesn't obviously hurt him physically.
His feelings are hurt.
But it hurts him.
Yeah.
You know, he's trying to be this thing, this, stop wars and whatever else is going on in this movie. And the people are rejecting him. You know, if we're gonna constantly bring him back around as sort of a Christ figure, it's Christ going to the cross. It's, nothing's happening that Jesus didn't know was going to happen, but he's still being rejected by his people, the people he came to save.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to know exactly when he's bleeding.
Oh.
All this, yeah. There's things I think the marketing's been a little all over the place on this. If there's a reason for these things, sometimes I feel like showing too many things out of context is really not good. I'm hoping it may be that we see the movie and we go, yeah, that doesn't work for Superman. I hope that's not the case. I'm hoping we're just seeing things too out of out of context to understand them.
Yeah, but it does kind of it does kind of beg the question, like, okay, wait a minute, I thought the sun was supposed to be magical for a Superman.
David.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody took my dog, if somebody did take my dog a few years ago, and had I been able to get hold of the person that took my dog, I'd have probably done some bad things. Yeah. So, there's that. But I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, we have this whole thing of like John Wick going on a killing crusade. Now, granted, John Wick ain't Superman personally. No. He's an assassin. He kills people for a living. But also, like, when John Wick goes on this crusade because someone stole his dog, we're like, yeah, I'd do that too.
Superman gets a little mad and we're like, oh no.
So.
Well, and I think, like, it's clear that they've been trying to find the weakness. They want to know what is going to push his buttons. Like, they're looking to push his buttons.
Yeah.
And they're looking to, and it's such a like classic villain move, to have somebody sitting there with a video camera. Andrew is John Wick. Yeah, I'm glad you decided not to go that direction with your life. Especially since John Wick's wife is dead. But yeah, I think you're right, David, because he's a person. Like, he's not human, obviously, but he is a person. And I think especially people with a moral compass, they care about other people. They care about their animals. And I think that's...
Well, what I like about what David's saying here is this is, so to talk, hopefully y'all will forgive me for talking more Bible here, but the idea of meekness, for some reason, at some point in the 20th century, people started saying meekness and weakness are synonymous. That's not it. Meekness is power restrained. It's, be powerful, be this person that's capable of doing great violence and then pull it back.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, Superman, he I mean, I think we see righteous anger on the part of Superman when he goes after the bad people. Like if it had been on a battlefield, people wouldn't have, I don't think, blinked, batted an eye. But, if it had been some kind of other setting other than just, showing up mad. But
Yeah.
I think, I do think that it kind of shows an example of that he is who he was raised to be. He's a person who cares about his people. He cares about his dog. Okay. And that's not, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Especially, because they showed us the whole dog thing earlier,
Mhm.
which I think is really funny. Have they ever actually done the dog in a Superman movie?
No, I
Like
don't
that's
think so.
such a cheesy comic book trope,
Oh, it is. I mean, and I know there's people that are just unhappy about including the dog, but the the bottom line
The
is
dog with the cape is just like,
look, the thing is there's still a lot of people that are very mad that Henry Cavill's no longer Superman.
I loved Henry Cavill.
I'm a huge fan of Henry Cavill. I didn't like things about Man of Steel. I had a problem with that version of Superman, but it was certainly not Henry Cavill's fault.
Well, that kind of came back and they were like, we're going to do a happy Superman. He was like, yes, happy Superman.
Yeah.
So I am sad that he didn't get to do that he didn't get to play a more optimistic Superman, because I like, me, I like optimism.
On the other hand, he's out there doing other things, and he's pursuing passion projects like his Warhammer series and
building his computers.
And he's in Voltron, and we don't know who he is in Voltron.
Yeah, he's got to be Shiro, right?
If they do Shiro is not a character from the original series, so I'm not sure which variation they're pursuing here. But look, I'm a huge Voltron fan. Like, I loved the original as a kid. I really loved the Legendary Defenders series on Netflix a few years ago. It's such a good series. They did a few things. They kind of bowed to some weird fan pressures there right at the end, which was kind of lame. But overall, love the series, and I'm super excited that they're doing a live action movie. I thought they should have done a live action movie back when the Transformers movies were blowing up so big. I thought that was like, did they wait too late to do this? Although Michael Bay's coming back to do another Transformers movie, so we're gonna get a lot more Transformers buzz. So maybe it's not,
it never ends,
a terrible time. But the thing I find really interesting about the Voltron movie is how secretive they're being about the cast.
Yeah,
we don't know the whole cast. We know part of the cast, and we don't know who anyone is playing.
Yeah, it's weird. When is this movie supposed to come out? Do we have any idea?
No, I know the filming is wrapped, but
really,
yeah, filming is wrapped, and we still don't know who's who.
That's weird.
So we'll see there, but I'm really looking forward to both of these movies. I'm not, I don't feel like I'm quite as excited as I used to get about these things, but in an effort to try not to be cynical, I'm generally not a cynical person, with exception of work. I can be pretty cynical about my work.
You tend towards being cynical.
I do.
You have to intentionally not be cynical, which I appreciate. So this is me being like, good job, love.
No, I think it's easy to be. I think especially as you get older, it's easy to just kind of fall into cynicism. And I still feel as a Christian, like, we're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of counterproductive to our Christian walk to be cynical about things.
Yeah.
And that's why, I'm going to somebody's going to drop here in the comments earlier and call me a shill for giving Ironheart a chance.
Yeah.
Like, they are. And I mean, it wasn't that I didn't have plenty of things to say about it that I don't like, but just giving a chance. I mean, it called a shill. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be that cynical, especially about my entertainment.
We even said maybe they can fix it with the Acolyte. We were like, it could.
Well, the Acolyte, I kept going, it's Star Wars. I want it to be good. Right up until the end that I went, oh my God, they
It's
made it. They
bad.
just kept making it worse and
So
worse.
bad. But Superman, I'm excited about Superman.
Excited about Superman. Look,
The costume is so cool. I think it's cool that they've done. It's kind of like whenever they use the bum ba bum ba theme for Spider-Man. It was like, okay, like we're
yeah.
kind of like really leaning into
I
the
think that
nostalgia.
using, and I think I'm now to be fair, I think basically every version of Superman since John Williams created that theme has used some variation of that theme somewhere,
Mhm.
but not so blatantly.
Yeah, I mean,
Like hide the theme in a bigger theme, like where you hear the notes come through, but like nobody's just been like, here we go, John Williams theme.
yeah.
Which is one of those, it's one of those that just like, if you're a fan of those things, it just, that theme evokes something.
You don't even have to have even seen Superman. Like literally, when we played the Superman theme in youth orchestra when I was a teenager, and like everybody knows bum ba 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 bum bum ba dum. Like
Yeah.
I had never seen it, and like I was drawing little Superman symbols next to my sheet music. So it was like, and here it is. This is the moment.
Mhm.
You know, it's so iconic,
Well,
and I
it's
feel like the costume is very like traditional Superman. The shoes are super cool. The sorry, I'm a costume person. But like they've got the dog, they've got, you know, like I feel like they've really brought in a lot of these
and
things.
Nathan Fillion. I'm gonna be honest. Like I would go watch this movie just because Nathan Fillion's in it.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much anything.
but I'm excited about it, and I'm sort of like cautiously excited about Fantastic Four because
Mhm.
it could end up being absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But I have more concerns. My biggest concern with it is, even if it's good, are people going to go watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you bought it. The Imperial March, the Force theme, like
Mhm.
the movie themes that just evoke something in you. Like if you're a Star Wars fan and
What do
you
they all have in common?
hear the John Williams, well, almost all, like, because there's one sort of newer one that I feel like it took Marvel a little too long to figure this out, but the Avengers theme,
Mhm.
it's just like there's just something, and then when they use that theme in
In-game.
Endgame,
Mhm.
when everybody comes back,
Mhm.
it's like, if that doesn't make the hair on your arm stand up, like
Yeah.
nothing will. Like,
Yeah. But I mean, but the Imperial March and Superman, I think, are even next level iconic, even compared to the Avengers theme.
give it time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Love me some music. What's the deal with all the lines? Okay. That I don't know. I have one so part of it I think is because the way they're building them like they're basically 3D printing them. Um and I think maybe it's just kind of so that it doesn't look sewn, so it looks to give it a really specific kind of look that you really can't create any other way. I think maybe for some it seems like it's
is it to
as
pull the
much
eye
as
away
anything.
from the seam lines?
Well, there are no seam lines.
There are no seam lines.
There are no seam lines, but I think it's to kind of create texture.
Okay.
But and I think as much as anything, it's just something that somebody started doing and they were like, "Ooh, let's do that." Also, it's really hard to recreate for cosplays. If anyone's wondering, really, really hard. But yeah, it's pretty cool how they do them. But I wonder if maybe because of the way that they're basically 3D printing them, if kind of having sections makes it work better so it doesn't look just like a blob. Like, you know, just like one visual blob, you kind of have those horizontal lines, I mean those vertical lines to kind of elongate. That's my guess.
So 3D printing them?
Basically, yeah. I mean, not on a regular 3D printer, but yeah.
Yeah.
They have like special.
So is it possible that they're structural to some extent?
Possibly.
Like just places of rigidity to like reinforce. So it only, because I mean, something like that's going to pull.
Yeah.
So
And
is it to keep it from pulling out of shape so that it maintains its shape?
possibly. And it may be to create, so if you have those lines that are kind of thicker, then it'll kind of, it keeps it from, it may keep it from warping a little bit. I dropped my phone and now it's ringing. Telemarketer. Nope, don't want to talk to you. But yeah, as a costume person who tries to recreate some of these costumes, I hate them. I hate them. They're horrible to try and figure out how to do.
Yeah.
Like I miss the days of like, fabric, spandex with seams. Although, and I do feel like some of them, for example, it's like, ooh, and I made this in my garage. Come on now. Like, why? They add a little notch to the bottom of the bet symbol. Hollywood always says it. Yeah. I think some of it is, it's something that the costume designers, they don't just want to put, they don't want, they want to put their own kind of mark on it, their own distinct. And so that way you can create like 7 different versions of basically the same costume, but they're a little different so that everyone can be like, ooh, it's different this time. It's a different designer. And so we have our lines in different places.
And I guess with some of the, like a Batman in particular, you do in the same, it's been done so many times now. So, try to make yours look different. What do you think about the Fantastic Four costumes?
I think so I did notice Mr. Fantastic's is different than the others.
It is. Well, the others have a white collar. His does not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Yes. And the boots are cool. The boots are really cool. In fact, I saw like the company that made them, because the first image that he came out, he was putting on his boots. They're like, we made it into we never make it into promo and stuff. Yeah. So I think I think it's gonna be cool.
Okay. Real quick. Fantastic Four costumes. Any thoughts on those? Then we're gonna wrap up. Because I have to go do real life stuff.
I think retro futuristic is kind of fun. I do like that they seem to have gone pretty comic book with it.
Yeah.
Which I think, especially for Fantastic Four, you kind of need to. Like it's its own like weird little quirky other dimension or reality or whatever they're going with. So I think it's good that they're doing that.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't, obviously, if you wanted to have the Fantastic Four in modern day MCU, like they don't work, like this version of them doesn't work that way. Like you can bring them in from another dimension and make it work.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, looking forward to those. We will be doing full reviews. If David is still in the chat, maybe we can talk David into coming back and maybe make the podcast happen again and review these movies.
Podcast happen. Woo.
Because I'm trying real hard to make time to make this stuff work again.
He's recruited him another co-host for when his wife is busy.
Yeah, but no, we need to bring the audio show back.
No, it's true.
And I need David back for that. So
it's true, because it's no good without David.
I was real glad somebody that does watch the show, Brett, everybody will know Brett on Twitter. Brett was looking to get into reading DC comics. I saw him post last night and I was like, I know who to ask. So I immediately tagged David and Daniel over there.
They're the people.
Because they were my comic book knowledge, because mine is very limited. But that's gonna do it. I gotta return to normal life. I gotta go, work.
I gotta go move stuff into my new storage building.
More shows coming soon. We'll be back trying to get more consistent. But that's gonna do it for now. Any last thoughts? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited. I'm excited about all the things. Hopefully my optimism is rewarded.
All right. Well, big thanks to everybody that joined us in the chat. Hope to see you back next time. Until then, may the force be with you.